Hello everybody, Trinity here. Just a quick disclaimer, my videos are for entertainment and educational purposes only. I do not condone illegal activity of any kind, and if you're suffering from any mental health issues, please see a medical professional. Alright, so, as the title suggests, I used to be a gun owner, and I am not a gun owner anymore. So, we're going to talk about why that is. Second set of disclaimers here that should take the controversy right out of the video, right off the bat. Should. I know that people are probably still going to get mad at some of the things I say, no matter what. Remember, people, these are just opinions. Calm down. Um, I support the Second Amendment completely. I believe that if you love guns and you want to collect guns, that you should go ahead and you should do that. That's completely up to you. I do, however, believe in common sense gun laws, such as I do not believe violent criminals should have guns, and I do not believe that the mentally ill should have guns. I believe that background checks should be universal, including private sales, things along those lines, just basic stuff that most people agree with. Now, moving on from that. So, here's how all this came up. My husband wound up getting his medical marijuana card. And something that they don't tell you, at least they did not tell us right off the bat, is that when you get a medical marijuana card, you can't have guns anymore, at least in my state. And they did not say anything, like they did not warn us about that. I guess it has to do with the fact that cannabis is still illegal federally, and it gets you put on a list, and you can wind up getting into some serious trouble. So right off the bat, we were like, okay, we're going to have to choose between cannabis and guns. And what surprised us was that this was a very easy decision to make. Once we started talking about it, we realized that both of us our feelings about guns had been changing over the years, and neither one of us had really said anything to each other. First of all, neither one of us are hunters. Just plain and simple. We're never going to be hunters, and if by some strange chance that one of us decides to learn to hunt, we'll just use a bow and arrow. Second of all, this household has mental illness in it, and I do believe that people with mental illnesses should not have guns, and I can't be a hypocrite. Having a gun for somebody like me probably is not safe, and I believe that with freedom, you have to have personal responsibility. And I would be a hypocrite if I kept my guns with my mental health conditions. And I don't want people like me. I don't think people like me should be having guns. When you are this kind of suicidal and this kind of unstable, and you've got severe depression and bipolar and PTSD and all this kind of stuff all together, and you're taking heavy-duty antipsychotics, having guns is not a great idea, and I think that most sane people are going to agree with me. The other reasons for us being relieved to be getting rid of the guns has to do with our personal feelings that have changed over the years. When we were young, and I think this is true for a lot of younger gun owners, you have this kind of idea in your head that you're owning these guns, to protect yourself and to be independent and all of these things. And over the years, we've come to realize that's just not how reality works for the most part. If you're a responsible gun owner, you've got your gun unloaded and locked up. How are you going to defend yourself if an intruder breaks into your house, if your gun is locked up and your ammo isn't in it? And if you're not doing that, if you do have your gun loaded and easily accessible and outside of a safe, then you're being an irresponsible gun owner. This is the part where people are going to get mad. Remember, people, opinions. It's okay. Calm down. But yeah, so that went right out the window. And then we were thinking about, well, carrying the gun, in case we're in an active shooter situation or something when we're out in public. And realizing that if a bunch of people were able to stop a bunch of active shooters in public, that would be happening. It doesn't. The whole good guy with a gun thing, kind of just a trope. Not really a thing. You want to know what you mostly see that winds up on the news? Assholes. Assholes who probably shouldn't have guns, who are wandering, who've got obvious mental health problems, who are taking AR-15s to school board meetings because they feel like they need to add a firearm to the weight of their argument because their argument isn't good enough to stand on its own weight. And it just ruins it for everybody else. And I want to be clear, I'm well aware of the fact that your average gun owner is not like that. Your average gun owner is not the type of person that is wandering around with heavy duty firearms going into Walmart. I live in an area where gun ownership is extremely prevalent and heavy. Responsible gun ownership is extremely prevalent and heavy. I have never, and I mean never, seen somebody going into public doing something like that. So I do want to make sure that if you're, hardcore against guns and you've been watching the news and stuff and that's where you're getting your opinions from, please understand that 95% of your gun owners are responsible, rational, reasonable people. However, there are some gun nuts out there. And these people, in my opinion, are a problem. They're a problem for responsible gun owners like I used to be, and like many of the people out there are. They kind of ruin it for the rest of us. A lot of these same people talk about not living in fear. I don't know how you can talk about not living in fear when you can't leave your house without a lethal weapon. I mean, that's living in fear as far as I'm concerned. And I don't want to live like that. I feel so relieved to not have the guns anymore. I don't have to worry about them for suicide. I don't have to worry about making sure that they're properly taken care of. I don't have to sit there with a debate in my head anymore about having them loaded, having them unloaded, having them locked up, having them not locked up. It's just, for me, personally, having guns was a bad idea. I am not the kind of person who should have guns. And I believe that if everybody out there used their head and was responsible like me in that sense, that could look at themselves and say, hey, you know what? I'm not the kind of person that should have guns, and was able to make that choice, I would not support as many gun control laws as I do. However, that's just not the case. A lot of the people that are mentally unstable don't know that they're mentally unstable. And we've seen time after time with the school shootings and the mass shootings and everything else that mentally unhealthy people are getting their hands on these guns, and mentally healthy people with guns are not able to stop them. That's just not what's happening. Um, so, yeah, I support some gun laws. Nothing too crazy. I don't want everybody on a registered list. I don't believe everybody needs to have a license. I don't want anything too nuts. Just some things that I know that in several states we don't have. Um, like in my state where I live, you can sell privately without a background check. And that's not a good idea. And I know for a fact that with my mental health conditions and the heavy duty antipsychotic medications that I take, nobody took my guns away. Nobody came and said, hey, you shouldn't have those anymore. And I think that's a problem. Um, that's not to say that every person who has to do 6 months on Prozac should never be allowed to have a gun again. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying there needs to be some kind of a happy middle ground where people with severe mental illnesses, intractable mental illnesses especially, or long-term mental illnesses, are not able to go out and buy an arsenal of weapons. Um, yeah, so there's a lot of attitudes about gun ownership that have changed for me and my husband both. Like I said, we used to associate guns with freedom and with America and with independence. And I think that you can be a free, independent, self reliant American without guns. I don't think that those things are mutually exclusive. I think that for most people, aside from hunting, or if you work in a field where guns are necessary, like law enforcement, I think that having guns is a choice that is based on whether you like guns or not. And if you like guns, have at. But I think that if you're making up extra reasons for why you need to have the guns, or you've convinced yourself that you're Rambo, I think you need to take a really hard look at the reasons you have your guns, and a really hard look at the idea of whether you probably should or not. Um, you hear a lot of times people talking about, well, I need guns to stand up to my government. This is not the 1700s. You're never going, as a civilian, you're never going to be able to stand up to a full-blown military with the guns you can buy on the market today. You're just not. Um, I think that feeling like you need to have guns in order to defy the law when it doesn't suit you is a red flag. And again, I used to be one of these people. I used to be a hardcore conservative uh, individual who held a lot of these beliefs. And just as I've gotten older, I've come to realize that they don't make a lot of sense. So I don't have guns anymore. I'm not going to have any more guns. And I think that it's important for certain gun control laws to be passed. And I know that that is not a universally accepted opinion. I don't know why. Um, because again, I don't want guns taken away from people. I don't want people put on lists. I'm not asking for anything that I think is unreasonable. But speaking as somebody who has been a gun owner for most of my life and someone who I consider to be a responsible human being, I think that the only logical conclusion is that some laws need to govern these tools that serve only one purpose. These tools serve the only purpose of killing, whether it be animal or people. That's what they do. And that's totally fine. It is totally fine to have tools purpose built for killing, as long as you respect that tool, as long as you recognize it for what it is, that it's not a toy, it's not something to prop up your ego, it's not something that you should be using to make yourself feel safer or better or like you are, some kind of superior being. It's a simple tool for a simple purpose. And when a person owns a gun with these things in mind, I think you've got yourself a good, responsible gun owner. I think that when you get people that look at guns as power, that becomes a problem. I think that when you've got people looking at guns as a safety net, um, social safety net, I think that's a problem. Uh, I think that it's a problem when people are deluding themselves that they've got them so that they can stand up to the government. Um, who's wandering around thinking about having a civil war or a revolution all the time? Wouldn't you be more motivated? Doesn't it make more sense to work your ass off to prevent those sorts of events from taking place? I swear I have run into plenty of people online who have the opinion they actually think that they want war. They think that they want things to come to an armed conflict. And all I can think is this person is a spoiled brat who's never had real hardship in their life. Because anybody who has even the slightest understanding of war knows that it's hell. I come from a military family. I've got many loved ones who have served in war, in combat. None of them wish that on anybody that they love. None of them wish that for their home soil, for the country that they love. And I guess that the politics have gotten tangled up with the gun ownership and the attitudes around it. And it's just gotten to a place that I don't want to be a part of. And let me make it clear, I'm not a Democrat. I don't consider myself a liberal. I don't consider myself any of those things any more than I consider myself a Republican or a conservative. I consider myself just to be a person who wants to be left the hell alone and believes that as long as you're not hurting anybody, you should be left the hell alone. The problem comes in with the fact that people are getting hurt, and something needs to be done about that. I'm not saying that common sense gun laws will solve all of it, but boy, they sure make a lot of sense. So go ahead and hate my guts or agree with me or disagree with me. Have fun in the comments below. But that is why my household is no longer gun owners, and that is why we will not be gun owners in the future. All right. So, enjoy your guns if you enjoy your guns. If you're a responsible gun owner, you have my full support. So does the Second Amendment and the right to bear arms. I just want to see people sit down and think a little bit more responsibly before they buy a gun. And if you already have guns, to maybe question yourself a little bit and ask yourself, are you really doing this for the right reasons, and are you really being responsible as a gun owner? Because you're holding the power of life and death in your hands when you hold a gun. And I think we should all be asking ourselves that question when it comes to making such a purchase. So, I hope you enjoyed this video. Like, share, subscribe, all that fun stuff, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.